why did we do backups, right? So obviously backups are important for Kubernetes, but why does something new need to be done? The difference here is this. Kubernetes, again, changes the application construct and how it's composed. Again, this is why I showed you the original screen, if you remember the triangle screen. You're not backing up a machine. It makes no sense to back up a worker node, because a worker node at any point in time is just a temporary environment for arbitrary containers. So if you back up a worker node, you're backing up unrelated containers. And secondly, you're not even holistically backing up the application, because another worker node has the other part of the application that's running. So again, Kubernetes is a distributed multi-tenant platform with various different objects sitting in different places. And so to back up an application in Kubernetes is different. At minimum, there's three things that need to be backed up. There are the application spec objects, which are sitting in etcd. There's obviously your application container and its data, and the container image. And so PX Backup knows about this and holistically can manage application backups at a namespace level, individual container level, or entire cluster level. And it is designed to be future-proof, meaning that keep in mind that you may be backing up, you may be running OpenShift 4.11 today, okay? And you're backing that up, but 2 years from now, you need to restore the application, and OpenShift 4.11 is long been obsolete. And by the way, you may actually want to restore your application to the public cloud. And so PX Backup can do that. It can back up from source A and restore into source B. So there's a lot of cool functionality here, which makes it unique and distinct from traditional machine-centric backups. Let me just quickly run through a demo of that. Most of the demos that I showed you today were around the CLI, and that's typically the preferred approach for the DevOps teams to run automation. When it comes to backups, though, visual interface is a little bit more appealing. So here's an example cluster. I have a couple of different backups. I can just directly interact with the backup UI as an end user, right? So I get, in OpenShift, I can go in and log in within my namespace. This will show me all the namespaces that I have access to and what I can back up. I can look at the various restores that have happened. I can manage the migrations. And I can also look at, historically how where I have my data sitting, how many backups I've done. I'm logged in as an admin here, so I have access to all namespaces. And you can look at the various clusters, because you're not just an owner of one cluster, right? So here's an example. I'm backing up from my AKS cluster, and then I can go to a destination cluster and then see what the backups look like.
A lot of the DevOps teams are, adopting infrastructure as code, GitOps style workflows, where a lot of the state actually originates from a Git repository. Like,
absolutely.
But I'm seeing you're grabbing the state from the etcd database.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So this, by the way, PX Backup is GitOps integrated as well, and you can drive all of the things that I showed you here, including migrations, through GitOps. There are hooks in it to work with GitOps. I'm not set up here to show you that today, but GitOps is a big part of the Portworx fundamentals and how people have been doing. T-Mobile is a large user of Portworx for a couple of years, and they have fully automated everything around GitOps. In this example, because I don't have GitOps, I'm backing it up from etcd. But when there's GitOps available, we can directly access GitOps and use that as the source of truth. Keep in mind, though, it is important even with GitOps for Portworx to know about the Kubernetes database as well, because a lot of times people tend to make runtime changes on the fly, which are not necessarily reflected in GitOps. So we have both of them, but we don't need to use both of them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, a simple example, right? Your storage class in GitOps may say that you want low IO priority, but while somebody's running middle of the night, and typically the platform administrators that are managing the application, they may not know where in Git this came from. So the developer may have said low priority, an admin may have gone in and changed it to high IO priority, and they don't want to lose that change that they've made. So it's always good to be safe and have all of that, but GitOps is a big part of the story.
I just wanted to add one thing. I'm glad, number one, Yoop, I'm glad you asked that question because you probably could tell that my face was turning red. Because you start talking database, or let's not even take database. You start talking backups in this type of world, and it makes me cringe because you're starting to adopt bad practices. But we can talk about this more later for sure. But thank you for that question, Yoop.
Yeah, Larry, no, I get it. And again, GitOps is what drives the modern DevOps platforms. But what needs to be backed up here and what's typically not stored in Git is the actual application. Yeah, the state, the data, right? Yeah. But the point that I'm trying to emphasize here is backing up just the state alone is not sufficient. Even if the application came from Git, at minimum, you need to know which version it came from. And so there's some reliance on GitOps to drive this completely end to end. And also a lot of the times the restores and migrations themselves may be being driven through GitOps as well. Like at T-Mobile, for example, and T-Mobile is slightly at an advanced user here, but when somebody wants to do a application level restore, that typically even the intent to do that is driven through Git, PR is submitted, and somebody has to approve it. And so that gives you a record for everything that happened. So yeah, it's these things are sort of interrelated.
Yeah. But building off the GitOps conversation again, number one, you hit on one thing is that if you're grabbing the current config in the deployment, right? You're grabbing that current config and you're replicating that over to the other site, or the other location, storage, whatever, however you want to look at it. Are you able to, if I'm GitOps integrated, is that going to reach out to, say, my version control system and do that? Or am I able to, well, no, because it would be different than what my version control was defined as. Are you able to show the diffs between the version control and things like that so I can know, hey, I just moved all of this data and all of these different, deployments and things like that. And now they look completely different. Not that they would look completely different after the synchronization, because it would have looked different before. Do we have that visibility when they're GitOps integrated? Is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, it is. That information is shown. There's a CLI associated with this too that can print out all of that information. But yeah, and PX can also submit back.
That was my next question.
The changes that it had made as comments. I think that part is slightly in a newer version. I don't know if that part is shipping yet, but we have thought through a lot of those things.
Good.
Also, Larry, keep in mind, I don't want to make it sound like we've figured everything out, especially around GitOps. GitOps itself, we're finding a slightly nascent, evolving space. We are constantly getting feedback from customers and how they're using it and reacting real time to that. But these things that you're bringing up are spot on. This is exactly how people are thinking.
Awesome. Well, thank you. At least you had some answers, so that's good.
I have a question as well, maybe less technical, but I'm curious because at the very beginning you talked about the strategy and how you are going to integrate the two companies. Did you get any reaction from Portworx customers about the acquisition? I mean, how they reacted, what they expect from this acquisition, especially from those customers that are not pure customers at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Go ahead, Kix.
I'll start with that one. So first off, yeah, I'd say the response was overwhelmingly positive. And, whenever there's a company like Portworx who is super innovative, their customers love them, there's always a question around what's going to happen in the long run. Are they going to eventually get acquired by somebody, and what's going to happen to the experience that I've had with that kind of company? And so I'd say what we heard over and over again was, man, I'm glad you got acquired by Pure Storage as opposed to name your favorite other vendor. Because, I think there was a sense of joint innovation, and the customers who are joint between us, really like us both. If there was one area of trepidation, I would say a number of customers asked, well, are you going to try to integrate deeply with Pure and then force me to only buy Pure Storage hardware? And, I think we very clearly answered that is no. We're certainly going to make the Portworx on Pure experience great, and there'll be some advantages to that. But we're absolutely viewing both cloud deployment and white box bare metal deployment as first class citizens, and probably the predominant deployment approach of Portworx. And so that's as higher on our roadmap than pure integration. And I guess the final thing I'd say is we've been very careful through the integration to say, look, we're not going to ditch the entire Portworx roadmap and slow that down so we can do a bunch of pure integration. Quite the opposite. Portworx is leading in its space, and we need to hit the gas and accelerate the Portworx roadmap as job number one of broadening the adoption of this technology as much as we can. And look, we'll do some pure integration along the way by adding resources from the pure side to do so.